Hello, hello, hello. It's been a while. I am Vernita Howard, the founder of SWAT. I am here tonight with Miss Laura. We're talking about She Matter, You Matter, I Matter. And so, as you all know, domestic violence is real. And so, we're going to bring some awareness on it. And we're going to also talk about the Laura's Law, HB 15, I believe that's what it is. Um, but we're going to talk about that law as well. Just a little bit about who I am. I am a survivor. I I am an advocate. Most of all, I am passionate about making sure that the people get the help that they need. Domestic violence is real, and every time we turn on our TVs, we're constantly seeing where someone has lost their life due to such a violent act. So tonight we hope that we will be able to give you some information that will help you if you're in an abusive relationship, some of the things that you can do to get out, um, and to let you know that Survivors with the Testimony is here to help you in any way that we can. So, Miss Laura, can you introduce yourself to our viewers?
Hi, my name is Laura Moseley. I'm in Indiana, and I am a survivor of domestic violence, over 23 years of it, actually. And I became passionate after I got out of my abusive situation and started healing. I became passionate about helping others to get out and stay out of domestic abuse. So one of the things, of course, we always hear, um, oh, what did you do to deserve it? It's not really, you can really do anything to help, right? Well, I felt like the best way to help would be to, look at the laws of, the state of Indiana about domestic violence. So I did, and there is really not a lot to protect victims from their domestic abusers. Um, so that's kind of where my activism has kind of steered me at this point.
Okay. So let's make sure because you have viewers pop in and out, and we always talk about domestic violence. But a lot of people will think, oh, I'm not in an abusive relationship, because she might not hit me or he might not hit me. So let's give the definition of what domestic violence is.
Okay. A lot of people don't realize this. A lot of people think domestic violence is where intimate partners, whether husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, what have you, a man attacking a woman and beating her. Most people think that's what domestic violence is. Domestic violence is any violence that can occur in the home. A lot of people don't realize child abuse is domestic violence, elder abuse is domestic violence. So,
Mhm.
most of the time, if there's an intimate partner relationship, that means that they're, you know, people that are in a committed relationship or supposed to be.
Exactly. And I'm glad that you brought out not just the physical abuse, but the child abuse, the elderly abuse. We also, the emotional abuse is there,
Mhm.
financial abuse, sexual abuse, neglect and abandonment. And so we want our viewers to understand that sexual abuse and physical abuse are the two that they can be charged with. But abuse is abuse. And if you see in those tendencies, you need to think of a way or develop a safety plan so you can get out. Um, a lot of times as women, we often feel like we're nurturers, like we can fix that person. But if they show you those behaviors, you need to develop an exit plan, you know?
Mhm,
um,
absolutely.
so a lot of times when we hear domestic violence, the first thing a person thinks is, I'm a woman being beat by a man. But could there be other perpetrators?
Absolutely. And a lot of a lot of domestic violence, I guess, narratives and definitions have changed because of the ways that relationships change, the dynamic. Um,
Mhm.
so a lot of same-sex marriages or relationships, role reversal. Men aren't always the perpetrators. Women can be the perpetrators as well. And a lot of times men don't report it at all because, they feel like that somehow steals their man card from them. But, there's a lot of ways that people can be domestically abused. Mothers and children, grandparents and children, children against their parents, and elder abuse, if anybody's taking care of an elderly person, and it does not even have to be necessarily a relation, they can abuse that person as well.
Exactly. And and so I'm glad that you brought it out. And so I want to say to any male that's watching, it does not take away from your manhood to report abuse. In order to get the laws that you need, in order to get things put in place, we need you to start reporting. We need those statistics because the more statistics we have, the better off we're able to provide the services that you need. A lot of things are government funded, state funded, and they use statistics in order to get those funding. So if you're not reporting because you think it's going to take away your manhood, we need you to report. Um, it does not take away anything. We need you to get the healing that you need as well. So you can, so you can be healed, right? And so that's important. Um, so Laura, do you think that a child is too young to understand when abuse is happening in the home? Because in a lot of homes, children are being taught what goes on in this house stays in this household. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I actually I don't, because I've noticed, just from going through abuse myself, that when my children were babies, they even if they didn't see what he did to me, they heard it, they kind of
Mhm.
felt it as far as the vibe in the home, and they wouldn't go to him. So I really think that kids are hardwired. They know what's kindness and what's not.
Mhm.
And I think that they do know exactly what that is.
So I know when I went through my abusive situations, I watched both of my daughters go through some things medically. And it was because we couldn't hold a sensible conversation, right? So I will watch my oldest daughter seizure like so bad because of the stress and the pressure. And then my youngest daughter will have asthma attacks really, really, really bad. And so when we're thinking that we're hiding things, we're actually affecting them. Another thing that I noticed from working at a child care is when abuse was happening in the home, the children act out what they seen in the home, right? So
Exactly.
you'll have a 2-year old, you'll have a 3-year old, and if they was in a disagreement with another child, they will act out what they seen. And so, parents, you got to be careful because your children will tell everything that's going on, and so as providers, we will have to watch, and we could tell when things was happening. And
Absolutely.
so the last thing you want to do is have your children shut down to a point where no one can help them, you know? So I'm glad we pointed it out because domestic violence really affect anyone and everyone in that home.
Right.
Um, why do you think it's so hard for women who are victims of domestic violence to either sometimes report the abuse or leave the situation?
I think on the leaving the situation part, and maybe reporting, as an abuse survivor, I knew it was going to go worse for me later. So, we know what they're capable of. We know that they could find us, no matter where we went, they would stalk us. So, and then we just have this hope that it's going to get better, and it just doesn't. So we don't report it. I know me personally, I got married very young, so my family was like, "Oh, well, you got married too young," and I didn't want to admit that I couldn't have a good marriage.
Oh, yes.
Maybe guilt and shame.
Yes. So, and I'm glad you brought that out because with me, I was the baby girl. And so, watching my sister have a really stable marriage, watching my parents, and then here I am, my marriage falling apart.
Right.
And so it makes you feel like a failure, you know? It
Yeah.
makes you feel like, what am I doing wrong? And out of all honestly, it's nothing you're doing wrong. It's just the person that you ended up with wasn't a great match.
Right.
And so all of that, but we live, we learn, and so now we're out helping other people, right? So I
Absolutely.
want to dive into a little bit about the law.
Okay.
So when people hear Laura Moseley and they hear Laura's Law, um, they think it's because of you. So can you tell us a little bit why it's named Laura's Law?
Yes. So there's a backstory to this. My final incident occurred in September of 2017. So the year prior, I'm thinking it was like October, if I remember right, late September, early October. There was another lady in my county. Her name was Laura Russell. And she was having the same problems I was having, got away from her abuser, did everything that I had to do later on by getting an emergency protective order, having him, arrested, all of that. She did everything. She followed it to the T. And there is not a law in Indiana to hold the abuser to gather more um, evidence. So they let her abuser go, and he left from being released, found her, and killed her, and then killed himself. So the judge that was over that, we and Madison got national attention for that, unfortunately. And he, regretted that that happened, but didn't ever really say he was sorry, which was sad. But when my incident happened the following year, same judge. So that really freaked me out. I was afraid that I was going to die, to be quite
Mm.
honest, because that's what happened to her. And as I'm going through my stuff and looking back on Laura, the other Laura, um, our daughters went to 4-H. I remember meeting her and seeing her and almost sitting next to her, and we were going through parallel things. Unfortunately,
Wow.
it just happened to be I had to chase after a smaller child, but um, you know, so the whole time I'm going through my ordeal, I'm thinking, am I going to die? Are they going to let
Mm.
him out? And am I going to die? And I have to say, they took a little bit more care this time with my abuser. I had the protective order, and every time he violated, I called the police. I filled out a report, and he was jailed 3 more times. So they did a little bit better job, but he was still stalking me. And um, when it was all said and done, my ordeal, he got 6 months of house arrest, and it was a misdemeanor. And then he could have it expunged if he successfully completed his house arrest. So he did. So the moral of that story is it would have had more weight if I had died, at least legally. And I don't like that. That does not sit well with me. And they tried to start this Laura's Law, about the time that all of my stuff was going on in 2017, but it never made it to the House floor in Indiana. So it's funny when you tell your story, people go, "Oh yeah, but what can you do about that?" Right? Well, that's what I could do. I wanted to revive that law, and I did. One Sunday in July, I set up a petition on change.org, and I got all of my information together and orderly, and made sure I had everything accurately told. And I started sharing it on Facebook. I tagged the state rep, and he ended up, within 2 hours of me doing that, contacting me saying, hey, we need to have a phone conversation, this next, in a couple of days. Can you do that? And I was just floored. And
Right.
it's gotten quite a bit of attention. He did get it onto the House floor, and the session runs January to March. He did that this year. It did not get any it did not become a law. They put it into a summer session, which I never heard back about because it was a major election year for him. And I'm in the process of writing a letter to see if I can revive that so he can take it onto the floor. And then I'm going to write letters to all of the state representatives so they will vote in favor of Laura's law, because no more people need to die. Laura should not have died. So when people go, oh, Laura's law, it's about you. No, it's not. It is, but it's not. It honors a very sweet lady that died too soon
Right.
and left behind, of course, a daughter who I believe just recently got married. I don't know. I haven't been able to contact her. But she had to do that without her mom and dad. And that's unfortunate. It should have never happened. Um,
Exactly.
but that's what that law is about. And basically, the gist of the law is, um, if a perpetrator is held, um, the judge can say, you know what, I'm going to hold him longer. I want more evidence. And the prosecutor or, any other governing body has 72 hours to present said evidence against them to see if they remain incarcerated or if they're let go, which, 72 hours is a good amount of time. Not a lot, but it's a good amount of time to help get a victim away or safe, be more safe and secure than if they just went to court the next day and were released, which is what happened in Laura's case.
So one thing that you pointed out, you stated that she got a protection order.
She did.
Um, so I just in case someone comes back and watch this, so we want to make sure that our viewers understand a protection order is just a sheet of paper stating what you can do and what you can't do, how close you can be to someone,
Hmm.
and all of that. And even when we think about Laura's situation, he violated, but then he turned around and took his own life. So no one is the only person that's truly punished in this is their daughter,
Exactly.
because not did she lose one parent, but she lost both parents.
She did. And, I know a lot of times I've heard a lot of people go, oh, that's just a piece of paper. That's not going to keep you safe. And on its own, no, it won't. But I had a protective order. And what that does is you want to create a paper trail as a survivor, because the more violations they have, the more likely they're going to be locked up or they're going to have a severer punishment, because that's ultimately what we need. We need to make an example of the perpetrators that perpetrate abuse. Abuse should never be tolerated, and the fact that it still is, and the fact that we have people on the news dying every day. I purposely quit watching the news. I go online and read what I want to read, but I
Exactly.
purposely stopped watching the news because of all of the women dying, mainly women, and women that have gotten away from their abuser, and their abuser still tries to keep them close. And there's been a couple here lately that really kind of pulled at my heartstrings, where the mom was meeting the dad to do a child exchange, and the former husband or
Hmm.
boyfriend or whatever he was took and kidnapped this woman and killed her. And I've seen that 2 times in the last year.
Yeah.
It's disgusting, and it should not happen.
And there was just a case, was it yesterday in Kentucky, where the mom and the children was killed by, the dad. And it's a sad situation. One thing, and I've noticed, even in North Carolina, we need to do something to make sure, again, laws, do whatever we need to do, because I was with a young lady and she had to give her address out because she has a child by this man, you know?
Right.
And it has been a domestic violence situation. And I was floored because she moved from where she was to kind of stay safe and was told, you have to, or you're going to face jail time. And she was literally like, I'll go to jail. At this point, I'll go to jail.
Absolutely.
Where can
Absolutely.
we can meet. I will meet faithfully. Um, but I don't want to give him my address. And the judge was like irate with her. And she said, I will just serve I'll serve the 48. I'm just not going to give him my address.
I don't
And,
blame
and
her.
and so in a lot of situations, we have women and men who have escaped or, started over just to have a peace of mind and then go in a place that's supposed to protect them, and they're like at a point where I got to give them my address. And so I think that is something we all need to work on. What happens if you have a child by, your estranged husband or your estranged wife? And, people used to say, oh, just meet at the police station. It'll be safer. But we've also seen and witnessed, even in the news, that they're killing them there. So nowhere is safe.
No.
But, it needs to be something else that happens where not only, and people don't understand, like their actions don't just affect that person, but it affects those children.
Absolutely. And, you know, it just infuriates me. I have to say that the court and, what that I went through did not demand that I had the address. Um, DCS had my address and the prosecuting attorney. And, because what's the point of the emergency protective order, I guess.
Right.
But what gets me is people that violate that, because I told everyone, hey, do not give my address out. My abuser put his name on our utilities as an act of control. So I had a heck of a time getting that changed over. So when I had to vacate our home, he was going to take possession of it. And I had to move into a trailer and was getting the utilities set up. And I guess the person at the utilities office put his name on it. I still had the same last name at that point, but put his name on it. And when he went to set up the utilities in his name, they're like, "Oh, are you moving from such and such, such and such?" And he's like, "Where's that?" And the lady goes, "Oh, I'm sorry." Well, he figured out that was my address and sent one of his friends to check it out. So they violated my safety at that point, and all I got was, "Oh, we're really sorry. We shouldn't have done that." Um, I don't know how sorry they would be if I were, you know, mortally injured or, was killed, but apparently not. They weren't too terribly torn up about it. So I mean, it's things like that. Privacy is put into place for a reason, and I think people need to adhere to that more. I work for a federal social services organization. Even though people are husband and wife, I can't give out their information. Well, I'm
Exactly.
I'm their husband or I'm their wife. Well, that's
It
great, but
don't
if
matter.
they're not there to verify, I can't give you that information.
Right. And so, Laura, we thank you so much for coming on tonight, really discussing the law. So if we have someone watching and they're in an abusive relationship, what do you have to say to them?
You have to take whatever precautions you feel like are best. Safety is of the utmost importance. So, if you have trusted people in your family, definitely reach out to them. If you don't, hopefully you have a trusted person. And even if you don't, there are advocates out there that will help. I met my advocate the day that, um, the day after my incident, and he was going to be um, basically I had to I had to go to court and while he was answering for his charges and tell the judge that I feared for my lives of my children and myself. So that's where I met my advocate and she was wonderful. And if you have somebody like that, or if you can reach out to somebody like that, all the better. There's always the national hotline, and most states have a domestic violence hotline of their own. Because I understand the national hotline right now has an average wait time of like 45 minutes, which is very crucial to, safety for things to be done rather quickly. So,
Exactly. So I will say to anyone that is in a domestic violence situation, you need to develop a safety plan. If you do not know how to develop one, you can always reach out, as Laura said, to the National Domestic Violence Hotline. You can also reach out to SWAT. All our information is scrolling below. Um, and some things to think about to put in place. Your birth certificates, your children's birth certificates, any medication and the dosage. Also your the children's shot records, your social security cards, your ID, the kids' school records. All those things are important things to gather, right? And make sure that you have some clothing enough for you and the children for at least a week. Get those things together. Keep them in a duffel bag. Those that could be your emergency bag, right? So it's
absolutely.
very, very, very important. And if you don't remember, it's okay. Just reach out. There are plenty organizations out here that are willing to help. Um, but no matter where you are, you can reach out to SWAT. We have plenty of other organizations that we can connect you with. It's not about who do it. It's about making sure that you're safe. That's what's important. It also takes money to do what we do. We are in Indiana and we are in North Carolina. So you can always go to our website, survivorswithatestimony.org. Our emergency line is 888-522-7928. If you just need general information, you can email us. And to support our organization that we have in Indiana tonight, if you want to, you can go to our website or you could do Cash App, which is SWAT IN 2022. But no matter how you donate, your donations are greatly appreciated. So, for those of you who come back, if you have questions, you can also put the information in a comment. We will make sure that we answer all of your questions. But thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you so much, Laura, for coming on to share the information. And again, can you give us the name of the law and what we can do to help?
Yes, it is called Laura's Law, and I do have a petition still on change.org. You do not have to be a resident of Indiana to sign it because all of the states are different. And, you know, I always have people ask people to sign it. And once they sign it, they end up looking up their state's laws and they are not very happy with what they see a lot of times.
Mhm.
So definitely familiarize yourselves with that. But yeah, if you type in Laura's Law on change.org, you should be able to find it. And you'll see my picture, of course. Her name was Laura Russell, and it is through the state of Indiana. So
Awesome. Thank you all so much. You all have an amazing night.
thank you. You too.